The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4WN Radio and Talk 4 TV. Now here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Language of Healing on W4WN every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where we discuss healing, the language of deciphering some of those codes and hidden messages that our body is trying to tell us, or sometimes even relaying and translating the messages that come through experience, events, and maybe finding out a little bit more about what it all means for us and how we can better manage and live with and move through some things that come up in our life, like pain, illness, emotional struggles. It's the whole gamut: the relationships, finances, career, purpose, and we dive into that here quite often. Today, a little bit more in. I'm very fascinated with this world. We're stepping into concussions and whiplash and head injuries and how that affects us, how it might affect us each differently, and very common things to see in practice. For myself, I know that, and it's really great to see a lot of new research and new studies, awareness around these things that are so common. Sports, driving, life, accidents, slip and fall on the ice. Okay, so we have a wonderful guest today, fellow Canadian, fellow Albertan, Jaye Fisher, who is a registered massage therapist, and we can bring her on. See her face, her beautiful face here. Hello.
Thank you for inviting me, Nicole. Thank you, Juan, for taking care of the tech stuff.
Yeah. So your background
I'm happy
is
to be here.
Yes, I know, it's great to have you here and have this conversation, because I think it's a really important piece of like a healing puzzle, and education is key, right? So as
Absolutely.
someone going through this, but I like your background. It's quite well rounded, obviously in the bodywork realm, and you also have your own experience with like the equine stuff or sports related things, and yeah, your yoga nidra, your yoga. I love that aspect too. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess the first thing I should say is that anything that I say regarding concussion and whiplash, anybody who suspects that they have had this, please get yourself checked out by a doctor. There may be medical legal things involved, and we as practitioners do need to know this going in, and particularly if it is an MVA, motor vehicle accident, there are particular procedures that need to be followed. And one last thing, as I'm saying, if you're a Canadian, you've had a whiplash, and hopefully you haven't fallen and also had a concussion.
Yeah. I know, slipping on the ice, tobogganing, like they've kind of almost outlawed that. Hey, you still see people, obviously, but they've strongly advised against tobogganing. Just shooting yourself down a hill on a slippery piece of plastic or wood or whatever.
Indeed. Though I have seen whiplash and concussion to get together or separately from so many things you wouldn't even expect. And that's why this awareness is just such a critical part of it. I don't really know exactly where to start, other than, lots of people have been diagnosed with concussion, and something that really fascinated me about it was that concussion occurs in the body and brain at 70 Gs. Whiplash occurs at 7. So every concussion has a whiplash attached to it. There's no way of avoiding it. Now, I am not trained as a concussion treatment therapist. My avenue is the whiplash, but I get to see people for an hour and a half at a time. So they generally tell me all the details that's going on, and I tend to be the one who is quite involved in the treatment. And looking back, I wish I'd kept better notes from the very beginning, because everything that I am saying today is just based on my personal observations.
Right. And you have,
some of the training.
Nearly 25 years experience. And the amount of focus that has gone into like awareness around concussion treatment is still quite relatively new. I would say maybe the
Yes,
last
it is.
10 years or so. So yeah, it's
very much so. I mean, I took a massive online course through University of Calgary and Université du Laval, Quebec last year, and I was baffled and saddened at how little research there really has actually been. That being said, there's more that has happened in the past 4 years than in the past before that. So
so what do you find most fascinating about what is coming out these days that you may have been like, oh yeah, I noticed that 20 years ago, or I don't know.
Well, I guess it goes back to my own past. I had a couple of sports-related concussions as a young person, and I was told to go lay in the dark. And I actually have very little memory of it beyond that. And then my son, who is now 22, when he was, well, he'd be 22 in a couple of months, when he was 12 years old, he had his first sports-related concussion. And while it was a little bit better than telling him to just go lay in the dark, there wasn't a whole lot more. He unfortunately had 2 more concussions in the following 2 years, and that was sad to see, but the information that we were given and that I was able to research after that second and then ultimately the third concussion, there was a lot of difference in how things were treated. Activity was encouraged. Now, I just automatically treated him for the whiplash injury that he went along with it. So, I mean, we can go into that detail more later, but we still struggled, and the information that I have today versus 10 years ago is quite a bit different, and how I have helped young people from sports injuries as well as people of all ages from different types of injuries, help them recover.
Yeah. Well, the more information it just helps paint a picture. Do you notice that there are different maybe methods of treatment depending on what kind of concussion? Okay, so a concussion is, well, like the whiplash, your head, it's like the jostling of your brain and hit with force, right? And causing the bruising or swelling. And so at a base, I don't know how to put that question, but it's like that's a concussion definition. Are they all treated the same? Have you noticed different presentations?
Well, largely, first thing I guess I need to clear up is we have learned in the recent past that concussion is not actually caused by the impact of the brain inside the skull. It is more the stretching of the gray and white matter in the brain. They stretch at different rates, and what happens then is the neurons are firing uncontrollably due to this stretch. And with the uncontrollable firing, uses up the energy, the ATP in the brain. So we have learned that concussion is a metabolic injury as opposed to a physical one, which, well, that was a game changer in a lot of ways.
I mean, here I am like, oh, I don't know if I realize that.
No, it's not yet common knowledge. That's the other problem. So this is why I was so eager to do this with you today.
Yeah.
And
I knew there was stuff coming out, but I haven't dove into it. So this is great.
Yeah. So what it has meant is the updated protocols for concussions. Really, it's a good idea to see a therapist who has experience and training in vestibular rehabilitation. That we are lucky enough here in town of Olds, Alberta, to have a qualified rehabilitation concussion specialist. And although I have not yet had the opportunity to work with her, we've worked in consort over several cases and had really, really positive results. So the one thing that, based on my specialty of whiplash, is that when the neck has functional alignment and mobility, then the brain actually has a better opportunity to continue to heal. I believe that this is because of better better movement of the cerebrospinal fluid. You're getting fresh movement, fresh circulation, and well, that can't do anything but help.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the lymphatic system of the brain and the spinal cord, and if if you
Exactly.
give it a chance to like clear out, you know, whatever's excess in it, or give it
And
fresh
all
life.
the products of inflammation and
Yeah,
yeah,
and like you said,
yeah,
if they are constantly being, it's almost like they never get a really chance. What I understand of this, overstretching of the gray white matter, it's like and constant firing, it never has a chance to relax and get into that
exactly,
recovery mode. So you're constantly,
exactly.
and then you're just burning that energy over nothing because you really only have like a certain amount, right?
That's
You've
right. It's
expanded it.
depleted
Yeah.
extensively. Another really important thing to note for anyone is that in the past we've gone by the symptoms expressed by the person with the concussion, whether or not they've had reduced headaches, less light sensitivity, balance troubles, any of the other symptoms, and we can go more into that after. But the depletion of the ATP is actually at its highest at day 14 post-injury, and that is most often when in the past we have sent people back to play, work, sports, regular
Right.
life, and they are at the most risk at that day 14 of second impact injury, and that is
Mm.
completely preventable.
Absolutely. Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, because in working with some people as well, they'll have a concussion and it's really just the smallest, like, oh, I hit my head on the overhead bin on the airplane or something, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like the trigger of that set it all off. So yeah, it's fascinating how some people can recover quite quickly from that, and others take more time, maybe because you're constantly re-injuring it or some of the factors.
In a lot of ways, yeah. Yeah.
What's the typical
So
timeline you see for people that are recovering from?
well, that's a very good question, and the answer is there is no typical timeline for full
Yeah,
recovery,
yeah.
and it doesn't even necessarily depend on the severity of the injury or the sufferer's perceived severity. We can't see inside the brain, so it's quite hard to tell. But generally speaking, in the guidelines put forth most recently, um, is that anything past 28 days is considered to be having a long symptoms.
Mm,
So after, and it does vary by age, and as I have discovered through observation, gender has a significant bearing on this. And the research on it is still very limited for females, but generally speaking, by 28 days, they expect adult males to have recovered. I think it's 80 or 90% of them should be recovered and able to resume normal activities. If it's sport related, you do need to get checked out. They have the inventories that are used to examine it, and that is something that I would refer people to that vestibular therapist for, and may even be required by your sport.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's almost a it's nice that we have that avenue, that sports avenue, because it's a profession, right? And people
Yes.
very,
Yeah.
take it obviously very seriously, and they
Mm-hmm.
invest a lot in their players' health. And yeah, there's some fascinating research. And by that, maybe the men are on those like more professional, like the higher paid, the more attention, So maybe that's
That's
why the research.
exactly it.
Yeah.
They
What
have
do
a
you
regulated
noticing? I'm
body to look
so
at.
curious about that, because like men and women like metabolize differently. So if it is
Yes.
that metabolic, you know, um, what are you noticing on the women's perspective, like female
Adults, I would
brain?
have to say for ladies, anybody who is presenting as a female at birth, so you have this genetic component, is that at least a week to the numbers. You might be still on the metabolic side of the reduced ATP, still at 14 days, but after that, I have noticed that it seems to be that women take about a week longer to achieve that. And then if we're adding pediatrics, the under 16s, I believe, is the age group that they looked at. Add So youth males would be the same as adult females, and then female youths would be an
Uh,
additional week to that. So we're
yeah.
looking at probably 6 weeks for young girls to
Yeah.
recover from concussion.
Well,
It
okay, so
may be as little
you're
as 3 for adult
okay.
males. Mhm.
Yes, interesting. Yeah, and now if you give it the body the right tools, you can even speed that up a little bit more. Or not really about, but just
Be
a
on
full
track for
recovery.
it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. There's a
I'm just
nutritional
kind of,
component we're learning. I don't have the background to discuss that in detail, but
yeah.
it's very critical for, well, energy production. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
no, that's a big deal. Even anything underlying you have going on, could contribute to that naturally. I'm just my little thought came to mind. You're from Olds, and I, was spent quite a bit of time in the Airdrie, farm. You always had the boys that were like the bull riders, or
Mm-hmm.
the the ones with the real farm kids, and you're always like, oh, you go, what? Oh, I wonder what's going on with that head. You know, how many injuries are there, and sometimes that is kind of a competitive thing, and I'm so happy for their sake that there's more awareness around like the injury of that,
Yes.
because that's quite significant. And the brain is still developing when we're young, until what, like
Mm-hmm.
21, 25-ish or so.
So
Um,
that's one thing that I'm hoping will come out with more research, is that youth categorization
yeah.
actually goes up to age 25, not just 16. Mhm.
Oh yeah. I think in terms of brain health, which is yeah, no, I feel strongly about that. That if with all this knowledge that we have, and don't pass it on to preserve that, a younger generation, it's like that's sin. We should be taking care of each other, and that's a gift, to really help someone
Mm-hmm.
recover. And Mhm.
Well, and it really does affect the rest of a person's life potentially if it's not treated correctly. Um, there may be, we call concussion an MTBI, mild traumatic brain injury, but if it isn't receiving the correct treatment, and that includes treatment for whiplash from a qualified massage therapist, it can go on to affect them long term with well, even small things that, maybe they just don't end up achieving their potential. And we often see concussion as a reason that young people do not continue on in sport.
Yeah, right. I mean, without that function or proper, yeah, I mean, it opens up the whole world. It's the whole body, it can affect anything. I've even heard some people having problems with like tasting or smelling,
Mhm.
after concussion. Like it can literally affect anything.
Anything,
What are the
any
most
part of the
common
brain.
symptoms you'll see? How would you know you had a concussion? I
Well,
guess apart from
can't
the
even
injury.
rely on a knock to the head as being the
Yeah.
main cause, though that's quite often the most common thing is a person has had a blow to the head. And you may see altered consciousness. There may be confusion, lack of focus, poor balance, nausea, vomiting, headache. There are a number of things that the sports, it's called the sports concussion assessment tool, the SCAT. So they assess it on the field, and then there's one that is not for sports, but it's essentially the same thing. And going over that checklist right on the field, coaches, referees, is a huge help. And then they can be seen by a physician. But then you get people who get injured without being in sports, like you said, car accidents, falls on ice, hitting the overhead bin in the airplane, you name it. You may not even realize it. You might just have a headache and feel kind of off. So my best advice is get it checked out by somebody. And if somebody is landing in my treatment space, they are here to deal with the neck injury, and I can advise them on other parts of treatment to pursue. But the neck injury is not even addressed by the concussion assessment tools.
Mm-hmm. I would say, sorry to cut you off.
No, go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just noticed in my practice as well that neck injuries can often be more how would I put that, like 4 minute, like that's once that happens, it's very tricky to get it like back to normal,
It sure can be.
Yeah. And like there's not as much attention on, everyone wants to treat the back or something, right? Oh, my shoulder hurts, but like there's so much that gets left behind in the neck. And I always viewed that as such a gateway of like true health, true function, mobility of not the only thing, but
absolutely. And the thing that I feel most gifted, my instructors in school at Mount Royal University, they showed my class a technique for addressing the muscle that is a main culprit in whiplash injury and ultimately with concussion. And it's a very little known muscle. It's not one of the sexy ones that sticks out on top and gets bulky or what have you. It is in the deep anterior compartment of the neck and actually runs along the front of the cervical vertebrae. And it's a very small shoelace type sized muscle, and it's responsible for maintenance of that cervical curve. Now, if that muscle gets injured,
right. Mm-hmm.
Injured in the forward and back motion of the head, or a bracing type movement, then that muscle becomes hypertonic or tight in one or more areas, or even the entire length of the muscle, and that prevents normal alignment and normal functional movement of the cervical spine, which affects everything above and everything below.
I mean, you've got your C1, if that's the atlas, that's like, we've got the head, our world, Earth, and the C1 is like the one that holds it all up, and then everything falls through. Yeah, that's the longest colli muscle.
Yes, yeah, the longest colli muscle. Yeah. And I have discovered that not a lot of massage therapists either are able or willing to treat it. And I'm not certain.
A lot of people don't want to treat the neck. That's what I'm in my practice and seeing and teaching, and I love teaching around the neck because it's like, ooh, yeah, here, let me show you, it's not a scary place,
Yes.
It's like,
yeah. Well,
there's actually
and the technique is quite easy to do if you have at least, decent palpation skills. As I told a friend who I was having treat me, because it's really hard to treat yourself. It's possible, but it's not very easy.
Yeah, you're just
yeah. So I had my friend teach it, and she was a little bit nervous, even though she has exceptional palpation skills and doesn't really give herself enough credit sometimes. But all I told her was like, just don't push on the pulsy bits. That's kind of the only things
Yeah.
like don't press on the carotid artery and everything's good. And she found it no problem. And demystifying that is huge, so that therapists can just get in there and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That to me is definitely a sign that, oh, this person knows what they're doing. They'll address things like
Yes.
that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's an important one, and really, going back and looking at my textbooks over the years, there's very little about that muscle at all,
yeah.
and
Oh
yet
yeah.
it is absolutely critical to neck function. And I have actually seen, when presented with a young woman who had a sports-related concussion, had been to the concussion clinic. This was going back just pre-COVID, so some of the knowledge wasn't there yet. And she had been several months suffering from extended concussion symptoms, and was referred to me through a friend. And this young lady arrived in my treatment space looking for all the world like she just had a knock on the noggin. And she was pale and quiet and subdued, quite hunched over in posture. Her mom actually gave me the history, and I got sort of grunting noises from this young lady. And we did the one treatment. I recommended that they come back in a couple of days, which is a little more frequent than I often do, but sometimes you see a thing and you just know you need to see this again soon. And 2 days later, I walked out into the waiting room of my office, and there was a young woman sitting with her dad, and I didn't recognize her. She
Mm,
was animated, her eyes were bright, she had color in her face, and she was chatty. And when I had her back in my treatment space, it was like a different person. And that was
wow.
one treatment of the longest calling muscle.
Hmm.
So it is instrumental. And then she found that her concussion symptoms were considerably less, going forward, and now she's living a normal life.
Well, that's a gift. Imagine, never having that treated and it just, well, the body's stuck, and you just had that little
Stuck.
like the
Yeah.
magic wand, bippity boppity boop, boop, you know.
I wish it was that easy, but it's not that much
I
more
know
difficult when
sometimes,
you have the ability. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes
Mhm.
it's quite like miraculous. It's like it astonishes me, surprises me
Yes,
so
I
much that,
know the power of it. I've seen the
yeah,
power of it, and it still surprises me. It's a
yeah,
big sort of, like you said earlier, mind blown
yeah.
with that. How can this little thing do this much stuff? And it sets up for a better and more complete recovery with your concussion specialist, if that's
Hmm.
the avenue you need to take. So,
Wow, that's
mm.
amazing. What else do you have you been noticing, just anecdotal, like in your practice around the difference between gender recovery? 'Cause that is quite
Well,
interesting, and I think that is something that, you know, even an
very
area more
much.
focus needs to go towards. Uh,
Well, in the last 2 years, I have had, I don't want to call it an opportunity, except that it is. I'm to treat siblings who had a
mm,
concussion whiplash injury. So they were both, when they occurred, they were about the same age. Both, like I said, sports related injuries. Arguably, the young man had a much more concerning type of impact. But like I said before, that really doesn't make that much of a difference. And he followed the timeline that is set out there as the ideal, and he returned to play, was cleared by the concussion doctor in 28 days after
right.
his injury. And when I first saw him, he was light intolerant, he was nauseated, he was not in good shape. And this is an active young man who does all the sports, and he was severely affected. The first week was quite. He was still exhibiting a headache, the light sensitivity, poor balance, that type of thing. But he gradually improved, followed the timeline, like I said, with myself and the concussion specialist. And like I said, 28 days, he was back on the soccer field. Um, being an instrumental player on my son's team. And then the following year, his sister had a sports-related concussion playing basketball, and a similar presentation as far as the early symptoms go, but it did take her longer to achieve the milestones, and it was about 6 weeks start to finish for her versus 4 for her brother.
Mm-hmm.
So it's seldom that we have that kind of ability to compare pretty directly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Now,
Well,
I
in
do
Chinese
see,
medicine, we have even we see like we can either run on like 7 or 8 year cycles, given our gender as well. There is that kind of difference. So, fascinating the way that
it
nature works.
really
It
was.
expresses
Yeah.
itself time and time and time again.
Yeah. Now, I do tend to see more non-sports related injuries, concussion and or whiplash in women who are, let's call it 25 and up.
Yeah,
And my hypothesis for the higher incidence is actually having to do with the muscle structure of the trapezius. In mature men, the trapezius is a very strong, quite bulky muscle. And in women, we are much more gracile through the neck. We do not have that kind of muscular support. So
right.
we are more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I see, the slips and falls. Men tend to have, impact bruises where they hit the ground. Women tend to have the whiplash and concussion with it. So, and in the winter, lots.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It doesn't take much. And I remember, well, yeah, that's fascinating. Even with I'm sure every country is different, but with the 14 days, because when say you're in a car accident here and you're going through insurance, you get assessed by, whoever's able to do that for you, submit, you have 14 days to notify that you've been in this accident to get this kind of insurance, treatment rolling, but you have up to 2 years to like legally to have some involvement,
And
because
it does
it could
vary.
express up to 2 years later, you know
Yeah.
um
I like to see people as soon as possible
yeah, of
after
course.
an MVA. Ideally, if I can see them within 72 hours and they've had an assessment by medical doctor, chiropractor,
Physio,
physiotherapist, then I can roll with it. There, 72 hours, I can generally get a whiplash, an uncomplicated whiplash, turned around within the 21 treatments that are given here in Alberta by our insurance. Now, other places differ. The one thing
yeah,
that I would say to everybody is talk with your insurance company about what treatment you are entitled to, because the companies are not forthcoming with treatment options or that this is paid for. I'm working with some people right now who were not notified, and it was almost 6 weeks before they actually got treatment, and their treatment is prolonged now. It should have been pretty straightforward, but because it kind of got a chance to set in, their muscle patterns were set, they both suffered unnecessarily and are requiring much more treatment than they would have in my experience.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it's always worth
So
having checked out and worked on. But like you said, even the neck injuries and this concussion um can happen, without even really knowing it. Just maybe
yeah,
yeah,
it is
that's
important
great.
to note that a concussion can occur without a head impact.
Right.
So a strong enough neck movement can create
How about
that
like head
force in the
banging at
brain.
rock and roll heavy metal?
Yeah. Well, many years ago when my kids were small, my husband was taking them skating, and helmets get outgrown by kids, so he put his on one of the kids, and was skating without, and he was pulled down by my youngest, and he did not actually hit his head. There was no impact to the head. But as the ER doctor said, he scrambled his eggs. So,
Wow. Yeah. Right.
yeah, yeah.
Well, anywhere on the spine, and this is what I love
Mhm.
about craniosacral too, or just giving reverence to this beautiful system. It's like our spine is this antenna, that supports our head, our whole universe, right?
Mhm.
So, and it houses this wonderful brain this separates us from so many other species, right? Like the brain is
Mhm.
what makes us human and really stands out. But so you could hit the bottom, just your tailbone, and suddenly, boom, it's your head. Like it
Yes,
doesn't have to, yeah, the kinetic
a
chain.
former riding student of mine, this is going back 30 years or more now, he got bucked off a young horse and landed square on his seat, and it knocked him unconscious.
Oh yeah,
So
wow,
he had what the ER doctor had said, that he had a full spinal concussion, which was
wow.
not a term I had ever heard of. I still don't hear it spoken of, and I don't think it's necessarily recognized enough either.
No,
Mhm.
no. But that absolutely makes sense to someone like you or I. I can see
Oh,
that
100%.
that direct
100%.
connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I've also treated a horse for concussion.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
it
how were they
was.
presenting? Like, what did you see there?
Oh, well, it was a pony that I had, and I was training a little white pony, and he was widely known as a fence crawler. So he would climb
Oh,
between wires or posts of the fence, or the bars of the fence. And I'm guessing, because I wasn't there to see it, that he was halfway through the fence of a pipe corral and was chased back by another horse, and he hit his head on one of the pipes of the corral. And I got a phone call from another boarder at the barn saying that my little white pony was bleeding from the mouth. So I ran out there, and he'd bitten his tongue, and mouth wounds bleed a lot. That was definitely not the most important thing, but he was presenting as exactly as a human would, kind of dull. Um, Eyes glazed over, so we must have had a headache. A
mhm.
little bit, no coordination, quite wobbly, really ataxic. And the vet came out to look at him, and he diagnosed him with a concussion. So,
Mm,
unfortunately, it's pretty difficult to treat the longus colli muscle in a horse. It's very varied, but we did give him supportive care, um, and he recovered quite quickly.
wow. Mm.
So it can happen to anybody. Hmm.
Yeah, naturally. I mean, just like
Hmm.
anatomically speaking,
Yeah.
it makes sense that it would be something. But that's fascinating with the stretching, the overstretching. Um, yeah, because you think of that rubber band elastic, it's like you overstretch it, and eventually that phrase, tensegrity, is that the word for
Yeah.
it? Integrity, yeah.
Hmm.
The tensile strength. So that's maybe what's difficult to really like help come promote back. But the sooner you treat it,
Hmm.
obviously is better.
Well, I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but when we were talking earlier about the uh, second impact syndrome, they believe this is what actually leads to um, the uh, the formation of the uh, traumatic encephalopathy, chronic traumatic
Mhm.
encephalopathy, which is a terrifying thing to contemplate. And if a person has achieved a full recovery from the concussion, they have not done anything that would exacerbate it in the meantime, they go back to, for what we know at this point, we may learn differently in the future, but we know at this point they have no more risk than anyone else of
Hmm.
ongoing problems. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out with more information in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything I don't know, I'm just thinking anything nutritional wise that you've come across as
Oh, no,
supporting.
that's the area I have the least expertise in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just popped to mind. I thought, oh, wouldn't that be fascinating? I'm just thinking of even something like I don't know, vitamin D or what, that
I think
helps.
vitamin D and
Or
vitamin
or
K
the
were in there. Also
yeah, or the fats,
electrolytes.
like, our
Yeah.
brain needs that fat support and
The electrolytes were a big part of it. And
oh,
for I'm racking my brain to try and remember what that exactly entailed as far as dosage, but I believe potassium was a major player in that.
yeah. Well,
And
anything that helps like the synapses kind of relax and calm
yes,
that you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because electrolytes are how we use our ATP
Yeah.
in a
Right.
nutshell. I mean, it's obviously more complicated than that, but
Yeah.
we need all that stuff, and protein, rest,
Yeah.
and appropriate return to activity. And this is something we hadn't discussed yet. What is that appropriate
I know
return to
that's like
activity?
probably the game changing um perspective is like,
Mm.
oh, we don't send them back after 2 weeks. Oh, we don't put them in a dark room to
But what
sleep.
do we do? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so
Yeah.
let's hear it.
Okay, so the current protocols state that for the first 48 hours, we call it relative rest. You're not going to do anything that exacerbates your symptom, and probably the most important piece is no screens, none. It taxes the brain too much. So after that 48 hours, and if walking around exacerbates your symptom, well, walk slower. Let's talk a little bit about what exacerbation actually ends up meaning. And they look at it as long as the symptoms reduce back to your whatever your current baseline is within 1 hour and are no more than 2 points out of 10 on your scale there, then this is the area which you should be working. It's called the tolerance, working to
Mhm.
that tolerance. So after that 48 hours, we need to start pushing it just a little bit. So we're doing very little for that first 48 hours, and then we're gonna start moving, because we need that circulation from
Mhm.
movement and the stimulation to help regain your normal functions. So we look at it as, because of that 2 tolerance, and we want to even start adding cardio work to get that blood pumping. And so you're going to do an activity. Let's say we'll just start it out with a moderately brisk walk. Walk until you note that your symptoms have started to increase a little bit, and stop and take your pulse. I mean, you don't even have to do it manually. Most people have a phone or a watch, whatever, that can do this, but you can still do it the old fashioned way. And then you back it off somewhere between 10 and 20%. I can't remember. I don't have that right in front of me either. And that is your target heart rate. That's what your tolerance is. And you work in that tolerance range, and just gradually build up over the course of time. And I would caution that if dizziness or uncoordination is among your symptoms, please don't do this alone. Be safe. Do not do anything that puts you at a risk of a fall, or even a stagger sideways and clock your head into something. Be safe.
Mhm.
And then this should gradually improve over time. The vestibular therapists have other specific tests and procedures that they would use. Oh, and go see your massage therapist. Get your longest collie treated. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that just means that, like, I think the coli is pertaining to the neck, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then longest, just the
Yeah. It goes a long way. It's
long
all the way
fingers
along
in the front of
down
the
in.
neck.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I will say, when I treat it, I do let people know that it shouldn't be painful. It might be a little uncomfortable when we hit on a lesion. The most thing, it's a bit weird because we moved the trachea and the esophagus out of the way to get
Well, it's a
at
very
these.
vulnerable space, right? To
It
get
is.
in that.
Yeah.
It's probably
And it
never
does
been
require
touched on the
trust.
majority of people, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's an area that's quite sensitive. Yeah.
When I was a new therapist, I often did not treat it on the first time I worked on a person because it is a vulnerable area. It's very visceral to have somebody's hands on your throat. The back of the neck is one thing, but the throat it's a very visceral reaction. So I often would not treat it until there was an area of trust between myself and the client. That being said, going forward and me seeing the benefits far outweighed that. So I would talk them through it and do it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when we understand what it's for, or like we're a
Mm-hmm.
lot more accepting and to receive, the appropriate treatment because people
Very
want to get
much.
better too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of people who have come to me after an extended period of symptoms of either whiplash on its own or whiplash with concussion. And I just want to let everybody out there know that there is hope, even if it's been years. Where there is life, there is hope, and we can always make improvements. I have treated people with 20-year-old whiplash injuries and had full recovery.
Yeah.
So that is, so
Yeah,
yes,
that
it's
really
wonderful
makes
if
a
we can
difference.
see you within 72 hours, but if we don't, there's still hope, more
Yeah,
than just hope. Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's like a big deal. Probably, and some people I'm remembering that young woman that you shared the story with coming in, who was kind of, like
Mm-hmm.
almost like sallow, like there's no, you could see the life not like the purpose, the passion, the
Yeah.
animation, the spirit is like
Mm-hmm.
dwindled, and imagine going on a life like that. So maybe there's, merits to go and getting some work done on your neck if you're feeling a bit disconnected, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And I
Um,
pretty much treat everybody with
yeah.
this now. Like, doesn't matter why you're here. I'm going to work on that. It has so many benefits for the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole body. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want that flexibility and flow.
Well,
Keep
something
going.
that I learned way back in school that had to do with seniors and their ability to continue driving, and that
Mm,
it had been shown that the reason seniors should stop was not their vision, hearing, or even cognitive impairment, but neck
oh yeah.
mobility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mobility.
yeah.
Yeah,
If they can
totally.
move their head, driving's an automatic enough skill. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the big reason. So, yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Mhm.
And that even just a little addition to that, because if we're talking about the neck mobility, connected to the head, down the backs, like all the way spine to the hips, um, like the falling, the risk of falling as a senior, is quite
Yes.
high, and it's such a we don't, it's just a fall, but that's what takes someone. It could be the catalyst for poor health. So,
Yes, very
to have our
much.
spine and the cerebral spinal fluid, like all the flow, and these are such gentle, easy techniques that
Very.
um, I believe every body should have experience, like have session. So, where can we
Well,
find
and
you? How can
people who
people
know,
reach you, Jay, if they have any
well,
questions or treatment?
that's a good question. I kind of have a very closed book
Yes.
um, of clientele because I'm only one person and I can only do so many things in a day, and I have an existing clientele. But they can always drop me an email at my email address, which is a long one but easy. Um, all lowercase, one word, stronghold massage therapy at gmail.com, and just, you know, make sure you identify why you're messaging me about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
just
happy to
starting the
answer questions
conversation.
and help people find someone who can help them if it's not me directly, because I mean, most of the world isn't here in Olds, Alberta. So there are
Yeah.
people, gifted therapists everywhere. It just
Yeah.
might take a little bit of finding.
Hmm. Well, and the more we talk and like build that network and that connection, and I mean, even like you said, the amount of information that's come out since COVID, like that's only 4 or 5 years, and
Mhm.
yeah, and a very significant injury that has been with people and part of the human experience for a very long time. So, um, I love that you're keen on this in your interest and your treatment approaches and just that culmination of experience you have to share. Yeah, I'd love to
Well,
hear
any therapists out
more.
there who are looking to pursue this, keep better notes than I did, so you actually have some concrete proof of
Yeah,
what you've done.
I know because I think
Mm.
this industry can be very helpful. Like you said, we typically with somebody for longer than the MD, the physio, the
Yes.
chiro.
Yeah.
So you actually get to know the body quite well, the muscle,
Hmm.
tissues and those flows and good. Anything last you'd like to add? The time just flies always.
It really did. Yes, it did. Oh, last messages. I guess it never hurts anybody to just look into some basic stuff about it. Be prepared in case it ever does happen to you. Uh, have a good team of body workers in your corner, and don't ignore small symptoms.
Mm. Yeah, there is hope. It might
Yeah,
not be all in your head. Like they
there
literally
is
might
always
be
hope. Yeah,
a metabolic,
exactly.
physical, real component to how you're feeling and what going through. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again
Yeah.
so much for
Well,
joining us
thank you
today. That
very
was
much. It was a
really
pleasure.
enlightening. Yeah, I really love, nerding out with over this kind of stuff. And yeah, let's just keep talking about it, bring more awareness to the world and helping us understand the language of healing. Yeah,
Well, thank you for doing the whole podcast world a favor by having such diverse topics as well. I've really enjoyed what I've seen of you so far, and I'm going to keep looking. So,
awesome. Yes, thank you. Yes, tune in everybody next week, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on w4wn.com and all the podcasting platforms. So we'll say goodbye for now and see you next time.
thank you. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a show today. And the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk4 TV. See you next week.